Thank you, Joyce. And got Joyce and Jane both coming back up for questions. People, please come up to the microphone and introduce yourselves. Lisa.
Well, testing, 1, 2, 3. I was wondering, well, in terms of obesity, you know, exercise is one component, and I was thinking the other component is toxicity leading to inflammation and insulin resistance a lot of the time. And some studies have been done that the mounting evidence is coming out to support pesticides making people fat, other exposures that are leading to, you know, direct correlation to obesity. So we were trying to get Michelle Obama interested in this because I think that it's multifactorial in why people are overweight. In fact, people on Martha's Vineyard who live in a moldy home often will have diabetes out of control. And if I move them, within 4 days, their sugars drop and their insulin drops, and they no longer will need insulin. It's really fascinating when you use the model of putting them in a clean environment.
I have a question back to you. Does that make them more interested in exercise?
Well, I make them more interested in
So you do
exercise.
that.
Yeah. I sort of push the interval training, 30 seconds of high, you know, really moving fast, and not say you need to do, you know, 30 minutes because they get overwhelmed by the large time requirement. But anyway, the thing I was thinking is that what we really need, I think, is some way to develop LEEDS credits for health credits. So we take what we know about health in concrete terms with biomarkers of effect and of exposure and say that we can decrease insulin levels if we do this in the building and decrease the VOCs in the building, because definitely VOCs lead to autonomic nervous system changes, and that's been published at Harvard. And so there's plenty of data that we could bring to LEEDS to say we want to start a criteria for credits, and I don't know how the credit system works, but at least it's a structure in place already that we could then implement some of these ideas, and your ideas on this would be great.
Joyce, did you want to talk a little bit about how the physical activity innovation credit got passed? Is that, y'all know better than I if that's something that everybody in this room may know about that but me.
I just want to say, yes, you're right, Lisa. I mean, there's an incredible framework out there. And when physical activity was introduced, I was the only lead AP on my city team. And we did go through that exercise. I think what you're seeing is that now the council has a doctor on its board, which is wonderful. And I think it's, again, not unlike the early conversation when architects were actually speaking to engineers. Oh, my God. And now we are talking to all of you. And I think we have to find a solution of how to, you know, build this together. And I think you'll hear from more this afternoon, right, Charles, from the council and from other green building professionals. I think we can put our head together.
Yes.
Paul Geist at NIH and also at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Is this on? Yeah. Jane and Joyce, thank you for your talks, both very important. With my limited time, for the question for Joyce, it has to do about the profession of architecture. I have friends in Los Angeles in particular that are trying to push for healthy buildings in their design and whatnot, but when they get to the developer stage and the funding stage, it's still in LA, they say, well, we've got a formula. It's like this formula. So my question to you is the AIA and the voices for architects, what are they doing to sort of change the culture of architectural design, reaching back? This particular group that I'm involved with, most of them were educated at the University of California, Berkeley, in the School of Architecture there, and they have that as part of their culture, but they say it's not profession-wide, and if it doesn't start in the schools, it's not going to get into the culture and then have that force going forward.
Thank you. I think my colleague Brooks from the AIA are here, so you know, we can definitely have a longer conversation. But I think the long story short is that the AIA is recognizing that design and health, they do matter, and they go together. Some of the examples that I listed are very low-cost examples, and in some ways, it really did not involve additional costs or newfound property. And I think it is in design intelligence. Physical activity is a good example, where you design your stairs, where you design your elevators. It does not add to cost. It's about making good decisions up front. And I think that's the message we're going to continue to carry. And the fact that I'm seeing these DARE campaigns in universities, that gives me a lot of hope.
I'd like to piggyback on that just because you referenced Los Angeles. And I also liked your comment on we need to begin these discussions during training. I think graduate school, interdisciplinary courses between professions, having air quality specialists teach architects and architects teach public health people, those sorts of things are a great opportunity. But Los Angeles as a city, I think was recognized 2 years ago at the American Public Health Association meeting as the first large city to include something in their city's strategic plan called Health in All Policies. Every chapter of their city plan looking forward for the next 10 or 15 years has to consider health in their transportation planning, obviously in their parks and recs, in their education. But this, I think, as we leave this room and we think, okay, how do we move this discussion forward? That last question highlighted two things. One is LA's Health in All Policies role modeling, and the other one is graduate school is an opportunity to have these interdisciplinary discussions and to be starting with the education as well as the research base.
Yes.
Hi, Steve Waller. I may have my Silicon Valley legend wrong, but I think it was Steve Jobs that decided to put the bathrooms clear at an awkward place in the building, knowing that people would have to pass each other going back and forth several times a day. So I think we miss an opportunity when we don't bring up the importance of business and collaboration and working together. It was made earlier, but I think it's a big piece of selling this idea of health in building that you might, either one of you, have a comment on.
Let's keep the comments brief because I realized I was looking at the wrong schedule, and so we need to wind the last couple of questions and comments briefly. Thanks. In case anyone else was also looking at the wrong schedule.
Mark Keene. I wanted to speak to your comments earlier. I think architecture has done a lot already. I mean, I remember when I first entered the profession, there was none of this talk. I mean, having a sustainable building was nowhere on the target list. So we've come a really long way. And the fact that we're having this conversation is great because I think we're all very insular within our professions, whether we're design professionals or medical professionals or scientists. And even within the medical profession and scientists, very insular. You don't discuss things as much as you should. So these kinds of meetings are very important. And I think it just takes time. We just have to have the right leadership and baby stuff and just keep moving forward. And we will eventually get to the point that we're hoping to get to it today. Because it's not necessarily obvious. But I've seen it happen.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's no question that the first step is to raise awareness. And that's really what we're doing here. And that's what we're doing when we're trying to design a new space or try to talk with all the other people we're talking about. There has to be discussion and awareness raising. Either Joyce or Jane have a final comment? All right, I think we're on to our bio and activity break.